What is up, guys? And the first official week with the monstrous, massive, huge, unbelievably large 8% Fury Warrior buff is completed. So, how exactly did they do? Let's find out here. Let's take a look at some of the actual numbers from over the last week and how Fury Warriors actually performed in Castlanathria. Alright, right now I have Mythic Plus up. You can see they're not too bad, but that has never really been the issue. Let's go ahead and take a look at how much we improved with the 8% buff. Drum roll, please. Oh. Let's go over one. Oh. Oh. Okay, it's bottom 5 still in Mythic. Not good. Not what you expected? Not what I expected either. Barely changed us. Let's take a look at Heroic. This is Mythic. This is, the top raiders right now. Some people have started Mythic raiding, but for the most part, most of us are still on Heroic. My guild is just about done with Heroic. Ready to start Mythic, but let's take a look at how Fury is doing in Heroic. Would you look at that? Still down here in the bottom half, even below arms, still, after Fury got that 8% buff, or 9% buff, whatever the hell it was, I don't remember. But it obviously was not enough, whatsoever. We're still bottom tier. All these people that give their tier scores, like, S, A, B, C, we'll still be probably a C minus, D plus, something like that. Not something you want to bring. The only reason you're seeing these people in here are because they bring the buff. That's about it. Attack power buff. Not even close. Look down here. Now, here, the only thing that might skew this a bit is you can see there's about 2 times as many people playing arms as there are Fury. So some of these people, if they went to Fury, some of these better players that are playing arms right now, this score might be a little higher, but it's not. This is what we have to go by. And it's not looking too good at all. So let's go ahead and take a look at the actual numbers here. We're going to stick with Heroic because, like I said, that's what most people, including myself, are on. Let's go boss by boss, okay? We got Shriekwing. Now, I'm not going to compare it to the ranged because right now some ranged classes, Affliction Warlock, Fire Mages, they're just Shadow Priests. They're out of control. A warrior will never keep up with them. But what I am going to do is take a look at the DPS between Fury Warriors and whatever the top melee is, and I think that's a fair comparison. So, let's start with who are we on here? Shriekwing, okay? Fury Warriors are only pumping out 3,157 damage per second. Let's go all the way up and find the top melee, which is Unholy, which they are also extremely overpowered. But we'll go to them, 3,800. That's a 600 DPS difference. That is about 20%, but just about 20%. That would give us like 3,000. So yeah, just slightly less than 20% higher than a Fury Warrior. Now they just gave us an 8% buff, or 9, and I think a 5% buff before that. And we are still 20%, at least on this boss, behind Unholy. Now you might say Unholy is overpowered and you're comparing them to a broken spec. Okay, let's go to Feral. And Subtlety, they're right around 3,700, we'll say. Compare that to our 3,150. That is still almost just under 600. Just about 600 DPS difference. I mean, it's really incomparable. It's still just around under 20%. You think we'll be seeing a 20% buff anytime soon? I don't think so. Not gonna happen. Stuck in the basement, at least on that fight. Huntsman. Multi-target fight might be a little better, right? Arms is just killing it up here, as you can see. Arms is built for fights like this, but still, we're focusing on Fury. Slightly higher, still bottom half. 5,000 DPS. Who's up top for as far as melee? An Outlaw Rogue. 5,600. 600 damage behind them. 600 damage. Not going to happen. We're not going to get a buff that big anytime soon to be anywhere even competitive with the top 5. You're going to have to play arms if you want to play this, but I don't want to play arms, and I know a lot of you don't either. Hungering Destroyer. Let's see what we got here. Once again, go all the way down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bottom 6, Fury, 3,500. Who's on top as far as melee? Well, this one's actually, look at, Unholy. God forbid, they're 7th. But they're still at almost 4,200 compared to our 35. Almost a 700 DPS difference. That is insane. There's no buff in the world that they would be willing to give Fury to even bring them around here somewhere in the middle. It's not going to happen. Once again, not competitive on Hungering Destroyer. What do we got next? Sun King. Sun King is the only fight in the entire raid instance where Fury can shine, and that is because it's constant AoE. It's just, you're just blade storming all over the place and cleaving, and that is what this, spec was built to do. So this one here, we literally are the top melee. Unbelievable, right? Can't believe it. But it's just one fight in the entire instance, and it's a pretty easy fight, pretty farmable fight at this point for almost every guild. This is just a healing fight. It has nothing to do with DPS. They didn't build it for DPS to succeed. It's a healing test. So it doesn't really mean much. Let's go on to Artificer. Oh, what do you know? All the way down here again in the basement. Bottom half again. 3,600 DPS. Unholy. All the way up top. Almost doing 4,400 DPS. Almost doing 800 DPS more. Let's drop down to Feral. They're just below them at almost 4,200. So what are we looking at? About another 600 DPS difference. Not going to happen. That's 1/6. We need an additional 1/6 of our total DPS added on to what we're doing now, just to keep even and compete. And Feral's only in 6th place. Imagine that. Artificer's done. Lady Minerva, Dark Vein. This is depressing. Fury Warriors, again, just hanging around the bottom of the middle. Right about the top of the lower third. 4,500. Outlaws way up on top. 500 DPS above us. We're not going to catch them. Council of Blood. This fight is absolutely atrocious and horrible for all melee. Not just us, but look at... just take a look at that, will you? Down here bottom. Pumping out an amazing 2,700 DPS. And Unholy is at 31. That's 400 more. This fight is just not built for melee. Neither is this next one. Obviously Sludge Fist. We're going to be down bottom. This is expected. So yeah, those are just ranged. Fights built for range to succeed and melee to suffer. But let's go to Stone Legion, which is an interesting fight. Because it's another cleave fight. 2 to 3 targets up at a time. And you can see Arms is, once again, Arms is a cleave spec. But in my honest opinion, Arms has always been the quote-unquote PvP spec. Fury should never, in my opinion, in my time playing this game, be this far below Arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots below Arms in DPS. Still doing less than 3,700. We'll call it 3,700. You know, go ahead, hit Outlaws at, we'll call it 42. Again, 500 DPS difference between Fury and Outlaw. And then Sardonathrius is actually the only other fight in here where Fury is not atrociously bad. You can see they're right at the middle, which for Fury now is I guess considered good. I guess this is success. We'll call it 4,200. Come up to, they're doing about 4,700. So again, even though we're in the middle, we're still 500 DPS behind the top melee. It is just ridiculous. Now, it's depressing. You know, the worst part about this is I know a lot of you, including myself, a lot of Fury Warriors out there, totally optimize their character. You can optimize your character perfectly. You can get to your haste cap. You can put all the right enchants. You can have your crit where you need it, mastery where you need it. Come to the raid prepared, flask, pot. You're using your pots at the perfect time. You're saving your burst cooldowns. You're playing your rotation absolutely perfectly. And you think you had a nice, you know, a good parse, and you look on your damage, depending on the fight, you're probably sitting around 5th, 6th, 4th, Right? Am I wrong here? Because this is what it is for me. And you're playing your spec perfectly. And the worst part about this is you got a balanced druid and affliction lock in your guild who may or may not be playing perfectly, but even if they're not, hell, they might not even have the proper enchants. They might be missing spells in their rotation, and they're beating you by 500 DPS. That, I don't know if you all heard that noise. Sorry about that. That was loud as hell. But that is literally the most frustrating part about this. You should never, there should not be a class in the game, and there's a lot, it's not just Fury, there's a couple of other ones too, mostly melee in this terrible raid tier, where they play their spec absolutely perfectly, kick ass, beat the shit out of the boss, and they're sitting in 5th, 6th place. Behind people who have, believe it or not, lower item levels than they do. So it's extremely frustrating, and I don't see it getting better. I know, at least not in this raid tier, let me say that, because in every single expansion, almost all of them, Fury Warriors, they haven't started this bad, but they start middle, and they usually end up somewhere near the top, and it has to do with scaling and things of that nature, which I might take a look at here shortly. I think I can do that on this site. But I don't see us getting any more buffs. They've given us 3 for a total of 24% since launch. We're still shit. And the reason I don't see us, or ARMS either, getting any more buffs, at least in this raid tier, is because even though this looks bad, and it is, the only thing keeping us afloat is the execute phase. I'm not sure how to look that up on here. I don't even know if I can. If I could, I would show you. But if you look at strictly the execute phase, the last 20% HP of a boss fight, both warriors are just all the way up top. They're pretty much untouchable in the amount of damage they're doing. So in my opinion, Blizzard's looking at that and saying we can't just keep giving them buffs because, yes, although they suck for 80% of the fight, for the last 20% of the fight, nobody can touch them, which to me is fucking ridiculous. Because who gives a shit about the last 20%, even though, yeah, you know, you need it to kill the boss. But we're sitting on our fucking toes here for the first 80%, not even seeing ourselves on the damage meters. And we have to hope for, you know, we have to hope for an amazing execute phase and hope our guild uses bloodlust or heroism during the execute phase so we can kind of see our name trickling up our damage meters and maybe come in 5th. It's terrible and it's broken. And like I said, I don't know if it's going to be fixed in this raid tier. I'm fairly certain that it is not. So if you look at the total, and again I'm looking at heroic, if you look at mythic it's even worse, but that's because, look, I mean, warriors, they're just not bringing them in mythics. The only reason they bring them is for battle shout, and they probably have a protection warrior for that because they're pretty popular now. So I don't really go too much by mythic. There's just not enough numbers there, not enough stats. So I usually go by heroic. And yes, mid, you might look at this and be like, well, both warriors are mid-tier, but Fury Warriors are used to being up here, top 5. It's literally the PvE damage spec, and to just be stuck down bottom, down middle, lower, you know, less than adequate area, it just sucks. It just sucks. So let me see if I can, and another thing is, I looked at all these item levels, by the way. I said, oh, maybe, you know, it's scaling better with gear. And I started, I think, around like 190. We'll go 194, and you can see Fury Warriors all the way the hell down here. So now let me see if people are getting better with item level, with, you know, strength increase and stats in their item level. I went up to like 206. Well, slightly better, but still shit. And right now, I think I'm at like 213 or something like that. And this is just where it plateaus. It doesn't get any higher than this. And there's not too many people with item levels way up here, so the numbers are a little scarce, but well, you know, I think 215 to 217 is a good average point, and it's just right here. It didn't get any better with gear, which kind of makes me a little nervous. We're not really scaling with the other classes, you know, as far as higher item level goes, which is what Fury Warriors have relied on and survived on in most of the past expansions, to be honest, and it's not looking like that's happening this time. So their borrowed power is pretty much non-existent. Legendaries are not powerful. That is our borrowed power, and it's just not working for us at all. So Even I even checked this out. I said, well, let me just check the purple parses, 80 or better. And you can see it doesn't change. It doesn't change. The top parses for every spec, it just stays pretty much exactly the same. We're just stuck down the bottom right now, and I don't think it's going to change for quite a while. There was something else that I did want to look at. Oh, right here. So let's go back over the entire tier really quick. And you're going to see a jumbled mess of lines. This is pretty much where, since launch, where all the classes started to where they currently are. And that's my phone. There's a lot going on here, so I'm going to get rid of all, most of this, especially the ranged. I'm going to get them all out of here, because we really don't have any way to compete with those bastards. Gladiator Warrior? I didn't think that was even a thing anymore. But take the mages out. Got the rogues. I think they got some specs in here that aren't even in the game anymore. But anyway, let's just take a look at warriors. We'll make this easy. Arms and Fury. Okay. December 20th until now. You can see Fury has always been crap. It's always been in the low 60s. A good aggregate score would be somewhere around 90, in between 85 and 90 would be decent. You can see Arms Warrior just started out amazing. They got nerfed to all shit, and they balanced out slightly below average, and they pretty much have not changed since. So Fury came in. This is the first buff we got right here. I think they gave us a 5% buff to some of our abilities, but that got us up to here. Still pretty shitty. They just left us here for about another 2 weeks, and this right here, I think it was the 17th. And I'm sorry, let me do all item levels just to make it a little clearer. Jesus, take all these off. All right, so this is pretty much everybody in the game. The other one I didn't realize I was still on the 215 item level. But top one's Arms, bottom one's Fury. Arms, spikes, Bray brought them right back down to earth. They're still down in the, low 70s. And you look at Fury, always been in the 60s, still shit, dropped even worse. Then they gave us that little buff, kind of plateaued a little bit. Once again, we started going down and down and down and down and down. 13th is when they, I think, announced when the buff would come. I would say, oh, it's coming on the 17th. Okay, let's go to the 17th. 8% brought us up quite a bit. Still to barely in the 70s as far as the score goes, which is still absolutely terrible. You probably still need about 10 to 15 more score. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is this class probably needs another 12 to 15% buff to be overall competitive with everybody else, that is all of these other classes that are just kicking ass. And the reason I don't see it happening is because of the execute phase. It's just the way warriors are built. If they gave us a buff that brought us up here with them, we'd literally be the broken unholy death knight. And for whatever reason, they don't want two melee classes being that powerful. So I don't know, boys. I'm probably gonna leave it at that. I just wanted to make a quick discussion video, and hopefully you guys can say some things in the comments about how, if you're looking forward to playing Fury, if you think it will get better with gear, because right now it's not trending towards that. It's staying where it is. And if you think Blizzard will just continue to give us these little tiny fucking buffs, here's a little fucking piece of gum, kid, chew it when you're starving and you want to eat a meal, oh, here, eat the fucking gum, it'll hold you over till the meal's ready, type of shit. Getting a little tired of it myself, as you can tell. So let me know how you guys feel, and yeah, hopefully my next video will be another buff, but I highly doubt it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time. And please, if you could, subscribe. It will help me out. I have like 300 something subscribers, and most of the people, I think it's like 98% when I look at my YouTube stats, are not subscribed. So if you could, do that. I'm trying to get to 1,000 just so I could try to get a little partnership with YouTube. I think that'll be cool. So, but thanks again. Have a great week.